Good morning. Today's devotion comes out of 1 Samuel, chapter 22 and chapter 24, and we're going to be looking at David. In 22, it says that Saul was chasing David. He wanted to kill David. David, the giant slayer, the captain of his army. They were writing songs about how great David was, and Saul was getting jealous. It says that at one point Saul was throwing a spear across the room to kill David. Needless to say, David wasn't sticking around for any more of those spears. So David left. And it says in chapter 22 that he was in the cave of Adullam. And everyone who is in distress, everyone who is in debt, and everyone who was discontented gathered to him. Wow, here's David looking for some help, looking for some manpower, and discouraged, indebted, distressed people came. I don't know if they came to his rescue or just to lick wounds together, but it didn't stay that way. David, being a champion, David being a captain of men, led these guys into higher thinking. Well, wouldn't you know, in chapter 24, they found themselves yet in a different cave, this time in En-Gedi. Now, En-Gedi is the oasis within the wilderness. It's right next to the Salt Sea or the Dead Sea. And these wilderness journeys, sometimes we relate to them as hard times, as times that we are in distress. And when we can find the sweet spot, the oasis, there's things that we can learn and be refreshed from. And David, running from Saul, hid in a cave. And wouldn't you know it, our Lord has got a good sense of humor. Saul went, and the word says, depending on what translation, he relieved himself, he covered his feet, or he was resting in the very cave that David and the 400 discouraged men were hiding. Well, these discouraged men came up to David and said, "David, now is the time. The Lord has given the enemy into your hand. Take the kingdom for yourself." And so David snuck up and came behind Saul, and with his knife, he just cut the edge of his robe off. And as he did it, his heart condemned him. He said, "What am I doing? This is the Lord's anointed." And he turned back to his men and said, "Hey, I cannot raise my hand against the Lord's anointed. God made him king, and until God removes him, I am not going to challenge him." And as Saul left the cave, David came out, sure, giving some distance to escape from, and yelled out to Saul and said, "Saul, look, I had you in my grasp. I could have taken you, but you're the Lord's anointed, and I didn't." And Saul beheld that the corner of his robe was torn or was cut off, and Dave held the other end. It's a good lesson for you and I, that there are times when discouraged men will come up to us and tell us to buck the system, to resist the authority. And yet we're told in the New Testament that we're to submit to authority, and that every authority that was given by God. And when we resist authority, we resist God himself. Now, I know that we always don't agree with those in authority or those in office or those behind the badge. But the deal is, God raised the authority up. They will stand before the Lord and give an account. But so will we. And David said, "I cannot raise my hand against them." These discouraged, these distressed, these indebted men grew that day because they saw something in David. More than a giant slayer, more than a captain, they saw a man with character. And that's what's needed today, is character. David's band of discouraged, distressed, indebted men became known as the mighty men of David. Not just great with the sword, but loyal to the king. Their loyalty was unquestioned. And it all started by gathering around one and taking on his character. Now, if you're a believer of Jesus Christ today, we follow one. The word calls him the offspring and the root of David. That's Jesus Christ. And when we follow Jesus, we take on his character. We're loyal to him. And he makes us mighty men, giant slayers. Now, those giants aren't necessarily going to be people. Those giants are problems. Those giants are things that we're afraid of. They are discouraging and deadening problems, and yet the Lord freed us from all of that. Our debt has been paid. So follow hard after Jesus. Be a giant slayer. Be a mighty man or a mighty woman after God, and see the victory of the King. God bless you guys. Have a great day.